Welcome to Kind All the Time. It's Time To's podcast where we are flipping the script on mental wellness and starting the tough conversations. Real talk about resilience, emotional well-being, and building the skills that actually make a difference. It's time to start the conversation.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Ciccarelli, and I am here again today to have another podcast. And I'm excited to say that today is the topic that we've been most looking forward to discussing, bullying. And Jessica Pricci is here with us today. She's part of the It's Time To organization and has been here from the start in 2017. And Jessica has been integral in sharing her message about bullying to over 40,000 students. So, Jessica, thanks for coming today. Thanks for being willing to share your story. I know it's a very personal story. And with that, I'm going to let you start on how you would discuss bullying with the audience today.
Well, one of the reasons it's so personal for me is because I dealt with bullying in high school. And I was a freshman and got bullied by some upperclassmen. Lots of verbal abuse that really kind of changed the way I looked at myself. And I internalized a lot of it, became depressed, and ultimately tried to take my life. And that lasted through college as well. And I think one of the biggest problems I had during that time was just not telling anyone. And not telling someone put me in a position where, like I said, I internalized everything, and it really changed the way I thought of myself. It made me think that I wasn't worth anything, that maybe all those things that those people were saying to me was true, and I just probably shouldn't be here anymore. And that's where it got to that point, and I really needed to get the help with therapy and stuff like that so that I could get through those thoughts that I was continuously having for years after.
So knowing you as I have for the last 8 years, you seem like you have a very strong personality and very confident. So what was it about the bullying that kind of broke your confidence and broke your resiliency?
I would say a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was young and vulnerable. I was only 14 years old when it started, 15. And at that time, I was still trying to figure out who I was. So growing up, believing I was just this great, wonderful, fun kid,
Yep.
and then someone telling me different at a time where my brain was still evolving and I was believing things I was hearing, really changed who I was at that time.
So you really, I'm assuming, dreaded going to school, knowing that almost every day you were facing these people that were bullying you. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just school. It was sporting events. It was parties. It was anywhere, because I wanted to hang out with people, but there was going to be some of those people that bullied me.
Sure.
And it was mostly 2 or 3 girls, but they would tell their friends, and then their friends would just continue and laugh on. And, so it was just, I dreaded doing things that was out of my comfort zone.
Sure. So, we've often talked to parents about if you see your child experiencing behavioral changes or giving up things they like or doing poorly in school, to kind of pay attention to that, because that's some of the warning signs of depression and anxiety and maybe self-harm issues and things like that. Did you start to go through that where you gave up things you liked, or you said you avoided sporting events, so already you're changing your behavior?
Yeah. I don't know, looking back, how much I changed personally. And it's hard when you're a parent because it's a teenager.
Right.
They're changing all the time. They're moody, they're emotional. So I'm sure my mom probably wasn't seeing a lot. And for myself, I probably didn't know that it was affecting me in the way it was during those times. Mm-hmm. But I didn't give away anything of that sorts. But I did do a lot of journaling. And I know I was journaling about the situations that were happening and how hard that was for me. So I think it was good that I was venting and getting it out to something. But I didn't tell the people that needed to know so that they could help me. So I was, yes, kind of withdrawing from some things.
Sure.
But again, it's hard when you're a teenager for people to see that as something different.
Right. So you said that you internalized a lot of things and journaled a lot of things. Did you ever tell any adult when it first started that, hey, I'm being bullied to a point where it's really affecting me?
No, I didn't. And, some of my friends kind of knew, so they would be like, oh, just come down this hall with me or whatever. But I don't think anyone understood what it was doing to me. I didn't even understand it really at the time, but I knew that it was really changing the way I thought of myself.
Sure.
And I never went to an adult to say, hey, they're putting me in a position where I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't like what I see in the mirror, and I don't even want to wake up. And I never voiced that to anybody.
So you said you got to a point where you try to take your life. Did it go from being bullied and experiencing this through the years to that episode, or were there things in between where you may have self-harmed or other things that young people do before they get to that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't being bullied, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't want to live anymore.
Sure.
I went through probably a year of depression of, like I was dating a guy and
But not being treated, right?
not being treated because
Okay.
nobody knew.
Right.
But like, for instance, looking back, I was dating a guy, he broke up with me, and I thought my life was over.
Right.
And different other things looking back, it's kind of like, yeah, I loved volleyball, but when I got injured playing volleyball, I just was like, well, whatever, I just won't play anymore. Instead of really trying to get back
Sure.
in the game.
Sure.
So there was definitely signs of me just being like, fine, it's just nothing's going to work anymore.
Just not
And
meant to be.
Right. And things just kind of piled up because I wasn't able to handle them.
Sure.
And then having the self-worth issues and the self-doubt on top of things not working out really kind of layered the depression, which got me to a point of, okay, now I just don't want to live anymore.
So I know that I've heard you speak in the past, and it's kind of like you reached your boiling point, your threshold of being able to tolerate everyday circumstances.
Right.
And then that was the turning point for you, right, where you try to take your life. And fortunately for all of us, you weren't successful. So let's talk about then after that event, because you changed your whole world, and you've obviously learned how to cope and put things in the past. So what was the turning point for you after that event? Where did you go? What direction did you go?
Sure. So after high school, I went off to college, was still battling depression. I had seen a couple of therapists on and off, put on some medication. I didn't like being on medication personally, so I would take myself off, and then I would just fall into a slump because I wasn't doing it with a doctor's approval.
Sure.
And so I was still going through a lot of that during college, and I was heavily drinking to numb the pain, and found myself in situations that weren't healthy.
Right.
And it got to a point where I was growing up, and I was in my early 20s, and was like, I need to fix this.
Right.
And I don't want to live this way anymore. And so I found a counselor or therapist that I really enjoyed. And it was probably my fourth or fifth one, but I felt comfortable with her. So with that, I was able to open up more, and found that all the other counselors or therapists I had seen prior, I just kind of told them what they wanted to hear,
Right.
just to get in and get out. So this one I actually found comfort in, and was able to say, okay, help me, because I don't know what I'm doing, and it's been too long and I don't like it.
So the take-home point from what you just said to all those people listening is, if you are going to counseling, you're not really going to get any help unless you're being honest, sharing your true feelings, implementing some of the strategies they have to deal with your emotions, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, and one thing I've told kids before is, no one can read your mind. So a counselor is going to be great at what they do, or a therapist is going to be great at what they do if you give them tools to work with.
Sure.
But they can't read your mind. So you
Right.
have to be able to express yourself to them at least a little at the beginning. And then once you feel comfortable, let it all out. That's what they're there for. They're trained, they're professionals. They're there to help you.
Now, I know everybody has different strategies in dealing with their own emotions, but after you saw the therapist, was there one specific strategy that you migrated towards that said, okay, her or his advice helped me the most with what? I mean,
Sure.
what advice was it that got you through?
I think for me, meditation was huge. That really helped my scattered mind calm down a little bit, think things through. Whereas prior to doing meditation, I felt very on edge all the time and just that something doomful was going to always happen to me. So that really helped me get to a peaceful place in my life. And the journaling really helped. And then as years have gone on, I've continued to learn more things. And for me now, it's positive music, it's positive TV or movies. It's really looking at what you're surrounded by and not being influenced by negative things, just
Sure.
keeping those good, faith, positive things in your life so that it's a continuous reminder of how great things can be.
So, once again, and I always, or I hate to keep alluding to the fact that I've heard you say this before, but I think an important point is that you told audiences that it became a self-worth issue to you.
Oh, absolutely.
You would look in a mirror and go, what am I worth? Why am I here?
And that went on for years into
You
my
got
30s.
down to that level. And how did you get through, I am worth something and my life is worth living and I want to lift myself out of this barrel that I'm in. How did you do that?
So I had to forgive my bullies. That was really what
It's
I
an
had to do.
interesting concept.
And I held on to so much anger toward them that was taking me out of that positive light that I wanted to be in. That was holding me back from looking at myself in a positive way.
Sure.
Because they had put me in a position and I stayed there. And so they were living their lives perfectly fine.
Right.
So for me, I had to say, you know what? They didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
They were young. They didn't think, oh, if I keep pushing this girl, one day she's never going to show up. And so I had to look at it from their eyes, their perspective, and we were just kids.
Yeah.
And I had to forgive them. And that was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders to then say, okay, now I can work on me better. Now I can look at myself a little better, knowing that it was their words that were put into my head, not my own. So I need to find my own words. I need to think of myself as being someone who's more important.
Right.
And that really started that journey.
And I think that's great advice. Even if you weren't bullied, having a situation where you're so angry at somebody that it's affecting you personally every day, probably not the person that made you angry.
Right.
And I always think of that famous Eagles song where it says, you keep carrying that anger and it'll eat you up inside. And I think that's a good way to look at it. Just flush it and move on, right?
Yeah.
As best you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier said than done.
Right.
But I think that's a good goal, is just to work through it, let it go, move on.
Well, and I think that's good for not even if someone's just making you angry, but just in general, you're in control of your own emotions.
Exactly.
So someone else could be in a bad mood. You don't have to let it affect you.
Right.
So just knowing that you're in control of your emotions and what you want, that really helps people realize, oh, okay, like I don't have to take on what they're putting in front of me.
Yeah. Now, after our presentations in the past, we had multiple people line up to talk to you. And I'm assuming they shared their stories about bullying and asking advice. And what were some of the most common things that young people said to you about bullying? Was it primarily physical bullying? Was it mental bullying? Was it cyberbullying? What do you remember of those discussions the most?
I think most of it was mental bullying. And I would say the majority of kids felt like they just couldn't tell their bullies to stop. They wouldn't speak up for themselves, and that would affect them. And some of them were telling adults, and things might have been started to kind of get the ball rolling. Maybe
Right.
a counselor was involved or a therapist, but they still weren't having the courage to speak up for themselves.
Sure. You know, we spoke at multiple schools about bullying, and I can tell you one of the issues that some of the schools had was they really wanted us to tiptoe around the topic of bullying because, you know, bullying is a consistent pattern of behavior that threatens somebody, either verbally, physically, emotionally. And you got to be careful that everyday teasing isn't lumped into that bullying. Because, I mean, face it, we've all been in grade schools, we've all been in elementary schools. Some days you get teased, some days you're teasing somebody. So, really, bullying, like I said, is a pattern of behavior
Yes.
towards somebody that they don't want that directed towards them, correct?
Right.
Would you say that's a good definition
That's a great
of bullying?
definition. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, if you have 2 children,
I do.
if one of your children came home and said, "Mom, I'm being verbally abused in school," what would be your approach to speaking to your child directly? What
Sure.
would you do?
Well, the first thing I would tell them, thank you for letting me know. You know, giving them props for coming to me and talking.
Sure.
And then I would tell them, or I would ask them, have you spoken to this person? Do they know you don't like this? And if they say yes, then I'll say, okay, does your teacher know? Does someone at the school know? Yes. Okay, then I'm going to ask who knows so I can speak with them so we can make sure this gets fixed.
Sure.
If they say no, the kid doesn't know that I don't like this, then I'm going to encourage them to say something. I'm going to ask them, can you get to a point where you have enough strength that you say, I don't like what you're doing, can you please stop? And I would hope that my kids could do that. If not, I would say, if they don't feel comfortable doing that, ask them to have a friend help them.
Right.
You know, have a little buddy system where you can go up to somebody and say, can you please stop doing that? I don't like it. And if the pattern continues, let me know so I can go and talk to an adult and we can get this situated.
Right. Now, I know you are dealing with young children now.
Yes.
And you told me at one point that you've seen bullying starting at such a young age now.
Sure.
What can you share some of your experience with that situation?
More, and it is a lot of teasing that it starts with. So in my position, I have to let them have a little fun with the teasing, but make sure it doesn't go too far. And so if I'm seeing where a child is constantly being on another child about their weight, the way they catch a ball, just in general things where it's a continuous pattern, like you mentioned,
Sure.
I will usually cut it so it doesn't continue.
Nip it in the bud early.
And I will then talk to both parties involved. I want to make sure the child who is getting overly teased and almost bullied feels okay and that they feel empowered.
Right.
And I'll talk to the person who's doing it to let them know that that's not okay and here's why. And having those conversations really makes the kids think.
Sure.
I don't want to just nip it in the butt and then them not even know why it's getting nipped in the butt.
Right.
So I think it's really important to have conversations with kids. And I also encourage all of the kids from 3 years old to 13 years old that I work with that if someone's doing something you don't like, ask them to stop.
Yeah.
And if they don't, you come let me know.
Right.
And we'll have a conversation as a group. Because I want kids to feel that empowerment and have a voice and starting as young as possible so that when things are going off, you know, when they're a little older, they've already got that voice where they know they can stick up for themselves and say, please stop.
Yeah. And I think that's a great suggestion, Jessica. I think that if you feel like you're being bullied, the first thing to do, in my opinion, is to at least voice your disapproval of the situation, right?
Right.
And sometimes that's hard to do. I mean, you're a young boy or girl, and you're being physically challenged by a person that's much bigger than you, maybe a little older than you, it's hard to step up to that. I think with verbal or mental teasing, it's easier to say, hey, look, I don't really appreciate what you're doing to me, and I would really appreciate it if it stops. I think with physical bullying, I think it's almost more important to tell an adult.
Yeah.
I could just picture myself as a 12-year-old boy getting picked on by a 16-year-old boy who's much more physically stronger than me.
Sure.
How do I tell that kid to stop doing what he
Yes.
is? So I think I would have to tell an adult at that point and help them get involved in the situation. Is there anything else? I know we haven't touched on cyberbullying because I don't think you were cyberbullied, right?
No, this was too long ago.
Yeah, and that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
I think nowadays young people are exposed to a whole different level of bullying, and we talked about that at our presentation, and I think our recommendations were that if you're being cyberbullied outside of school, you have every right to get authorities involved.
Right.
And I think the first thing that I would recommend is if it's somebody that you know in school, maybe get your parent involved, maybe get the school involved and say, hey, look, I'm being cyberbullied outside of school.
Yeah.
I want to get you involved. But if it's somebody that is not involved in the school, maybe at a different school, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend getting authorities involved because,
Absolutely.
That can lead and escalate to a whole different level of trauma
Yeah.
for that person. So,
And that's something it's hard to run away from.
sure.
If you're getting bullied at a school, well, you can come home and not deal with it.
Right,
But if it's every time you pick up your phone
right.
and it's social media, then you can't even get on social media and connect with other people. That could be really hard for kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's a level of harassment
Yeah.
when you think about it. And I
Yeah.
think that's why you need to take an extra step and get authorities involved if you need to. So if you were offering advice, and let's wrap up this conversation. So let's look at two situations, okay? Firstly, a parent comes to you for advice and says, hey, look, my 13-year-old child just switched schools. And at the new school, they're being bullied by a group of young people. What advice would you offer to the parent who sought advice from you knowing your situation?
Well, I would, say I'm glad that you're involved. It's really important that the parent be involved and that your child's talking to you about this. So let your child know that you really appreciate that and you think that's great that they've come to you. And ask your child what they're doing. Are they speaking up for themselves? Are they talking to anyone at the school? Get as much information as you can as a parent and continue to encourage your child to speak up, encourage your child to have a voice and not be ashamed, not feel hurt, just to know that they are worth something. And on the back end, I would say then contacting the school and saying, hey, this is what my child's informed me of. Have you been aware of this? What can we do to prevent this from happening further? Do you guys have a policy? Getting to know the new school and what's going on and making sure that it doesn't continue.
Sure.
And keeping that communication open with the school is very important.
So now you have a different situation. So now the parent tells you, kind of elaborating on the same situation, but taking it from the child's standpoint.
Okay.
I don't want to go to school anymore. I want to go back to my old school, or I want to switch schools. How would you look at that situation? Because we've heard that.
And you're saying, and the parent knows it's because of bullying?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now you're the parent, and we've heard parents say, hey, look, I don't think it's fair that I now have to go to a private school and pay money because my child is being bullied at a certain school.
Sure.
So how do you walk the child through getting through this process?
I mean, that is a difficult one. I would definitely have this child in therapy or talking to someone else to make sure that if we're stuck in a situation that we can't get out of, this is for life lessons.
Right.
If you're stuck in a situation you can't get out of, how can you get out of it? So I would want my child to be talking to someone to find strategic ways to make themselves feel good, even if they're in a bad situation.
Right.
Kind of like I was talking about, when someone else is in a bad mood, you don't have to be in that bad mood.
Right.
So it's teaching your child to be resilient, to be able to walk through the storm. And I would still continue talking to the school, continue doing whatever I could. But, we can't always cater to our kids. We can't be, okay, let's just pull you out and go somewhere else.
Right.
They've got to learn how to straighten up, have a backbone, and charge through. So I think it's really teaching them skills as to how to get through bad situations.
And I think that's a legitimate point. I think we need to let our children know, hey, we're there for you. We're going to help you work through this problem. But this is a situation that, we just can't all of a sudden pull you out of it. I mean, we have to work through it. And like you said, maybe involving the school to a larger extent, getting a therapist involved, having more frequent conversations with your child. How's your day going? Do you need me for anything? Do you want to talk about anything after a day in school?
Right.
And we've heard it time and time again. Your children want to know that you're there for them. They don't want you to always solve their problem. They're not asking you to get involved to a point where you're a helicopter parent,
right,
for lack of a better term. But they do need to know that you are there for them. They could talk to you about a situation, and you'll help them resolve it if they want your help.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, yes. And knowing that you're there is very important for kids, but also it teaches them that they can't just rely on you for everything, that they have to figure out how to problem solve.
Yeah.
And you can give them suggestions, or you can ask them, well, what would you do? How would you handle this?
Yeah.
And I even think what I do with my kids is, when I'm stuck in a situation, I'll bring it to my kids and say, hey, what do you think I should do? So that their brain is just constantly thinking it might not be their problem, it's somebody else's problem, but it continues to get their mind thinking, okay, this is what I would do if I were you. And then if they're in that position, oh, well, they've already thought this through.
Right.
Right.
Well, Jessica, I want to thank you for being here. And I do want to emphasize to those listening, bullying is real. When we've spoken at schools and we've asked students to raise their hand if they feel that bullying is a problem at their school, I can tell you consistently that over 50% of students in that audience raise their hand. Now, we would like to think that that isn't a big problem, but when half of the kids in the school think that bullying is a problem, then it's real. And I think that schools have an obligation, and they do for the most part, to protect their students. And unless students seek help, then they may not know what's going on in that school. So if you're a parent, your child comes home, tells you that they're being bullied in school, take it seriously, have a conversation with them. And mostly, if it were me personally, I would at least bring it to the awareness of the school, that my child came home, told me that there was a problem, and I just want you to be on the lookout, see if you witness it. If you do, please address it in the school as best you can. So with that, I would like to thank you, Jessica, for being here today, sharing your story. I know that you've helped countless young people that have heard your story. And you've probably given them hope. You've given them a reason to work through their problems, see their self-worth, develop confidence that maybe has been dwindling or diminishing since they've gone through that bullying. So I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do that.
Thank you.
I would like to tell our audience, please check out our website, www.itstime2.org, where you could check out this podcast and others, or listen to it on your favorite listening platform. So be kind all the time, and look forward to seeing you again on future podcasts.